Hello and welcome to another edition of Learners Academy on HTML beginners tutorial. So today we'll be talking about HTML forms. Also, HTML form is used to collect user inputs, and this user input is mostly or often sent to a server for processing. And for you to begin with an HTML form, we have to start with the form tag, which is denoted as form. And every other content or element within this form tag is regarded as the family of this form. And the HTML or code editor or web browser reads the information inside this form tag as an element or as a content of this form. So we have various ways of which we can design form. I'm going to give you guys the basic structure of a form. So let's talk about the user inputs in terms of text, button, radio button, checkbox, submit button, time, dates, etc. So let's get started. Now to write or design an HTML form, we have what we call a label. So the label gives the user or tells the user a pre-informed information about what the user is going to input at that particular time or place. So let's say we have a label, and a label consists of an attribute which is for, and we use this for to trace whatever ID or whatever attribute we are going to have in our input, and the for element must match the ID element of our input. So let's say we have for, let's have first name. I'm gonna write first name. Now you can see on our browser we have first name over there. So we're going to have our input now. Input text. Like I said earlier, the the same attribute name you have for your for on your label is going to match the same thing you're going to have for your ID and your name. So I'm going to write first name as well inside the ID, and the same thing goes over here. Okay, then we have other attributes of the input element which I want to show you. The input tag, we have what we called the placeholder. Now, what's the job of this placeholder? The placeholder is simply holding the place of whatever value you want to put, and this value stands like a dummy value or like a reference of what's supposed to be imputed. Now, like this section, we have first name, so I can create a placeholder saying John, and immediately it's going to appear inside the box. Now, this is not an actual value, it's a dummy value. So when I put my cursor and start typing, it goes off. When I delete, it comes back again. So it gives you an hint of what you are supposed to impute at this particular session. That is the job of the placeholder. So I'm going to do this I'm going to repeat this same thing for my last name. So I just duplicated that session. So change this to last name, and same thing goes here. And I'm going to change this as well. Okay, now you can see that, let me maximize this. You can see that our first name and last name are on the straight line, and I don't want this to happen. So um, normally, if I don't want them to be on the same line, I'm going to use my CSS to style them. But for the sake of the HTML tutorial we're dealing on without the CSS for now. So we'll be using what we all know, which is a paragraph tag, to wrap each of these elements so that they are going to be in a paragraph. So I'll copy this first one and I'll cut. Sorry, I'll copy again, cut. Then I'm going to put the paragraph tag and wrap it in between it. Same thing goes for this. Cut. Put my paragraph tag. Now, when I reload my website, I'll be having the first name and the last name on two separate lines because this is being wrapped with a paragraph and this is being wrapped with another paragraph. Okay, so let's go. So now we'll be moving on to other elements. We have learned how to create the input for text. Now let's design the one for password and email. So I'm going to create another paragraph tag, and in between I'll have an input for password. You can see the type of the input is password. Then the name I'm going to write PSW and an ID of PSW, that's for password. Then least I forgot, we have to have our label in it. So I have a label and it's going to be PSW. So over here I write password, password. Now here we go. So if you look at this part, whenever I'm writing a value, it automatically hides the value, and there's an icon here to unhide and hide the value. So this is what makes our work very unique about the password. It has an hide and unhide feature, unlike the regular HTML we had before that you have to design this using JavaScript. But with the new features of HTML5, it has the hide and unhide features. Okay, let's move over to the email section. Now we're going to have another paragraph tag. So have a label. We call it email. Email. Then we have the input section for it. Input email. And it's going to be email as well. And the ID is going to be email. So let's see what happens. You can see that we're having a dummy email, something like this. Okay, so let's put a placeholder in it. Let's put a placeholder. So I have John at gmail.com. Now instead of this we'll be having our John at gmail.com over here as our placeholder. So this is like kind of a safe password I have, that's why it's kind of interrupting it, but this is what we're supposed to have, a John at gmail.com. Okay, so let's move over to the next one. Now there's something very unique about the form tag. You can have a submit button. So let's say input submit. I'll have submit over here, or let's say register. You can give it any name you like. So have this. Now once you click on register, it's going to send all the details you have imputed down. You can see first name, last name, PSW, and this. Now You can see that it submitted everything without any query. So let's add a little form validation to this. So using form validation is where we implement what we call the required attribute. The required attribute creates or makes an input of a form attribute to be mandatory. That means if I'm to put inside my input now for the password, let's say let's create something like this, and let's give it required. So if I want to submit this form and without imputing anything on my password, without imputing any value on my password, it's going to prompt me to impute a password. It's going to prompt me to impute a password. Now you can see it said, please fill out this field. That is because I have already marked this password session as a required session. So without me filling out the password session, it's not going to submit this form. So this is a little form validation designed by HTML that you can use, and you can apply it to as many options as possible that you want. Okay, so let's have another type of input. Let's have the input for, let's say you're talking about um, favorite clothes or hobbies. Let's design something like hobbies. So we'll say label, call it hobbies. I'll say hobby. Now you know a user hobbies can be more than one. So we're going to create an input checkbox name. I'll call it dancing. So this the first one, dancing. Then over to the ID. Remember I said your for and your ID must have the same. So I'll give these hobbies. And over here, we're going to have I'm going to have let's say dancing at the front, dancing. So if I refresh this, we'll be having something like this for us to click to select as our hobbies. So let's create more. Let's create more of them. So hobbies and do this. So I'm going to do a line break over here. So I'll take this to the next line. So I have hobbies. So I'll create more of this, like 3 more. So I'll put this as reading and um, let's say music listening. So I have to edit the name as well. So this is going to be music reading. Now what's just going to happen? You can see they are all on the same line, and I can select all of them. So the 2 of them can be my hobbies, and 2 can be my hobbies, and one of them can be my hobbies, or none can be my hobbies. So that's going to create a section for others. But for now, you know that your checkbox enables you to click more than one feed. You can select more than one feed with your checkbox, unlike the next one which we're going to discuss, which is the radio. So you can decide to put them into different lines, like using the break tag. So BR, and this will push it to the next line as in this. So you can apply it to all of them. I'll have BR as well by, so we'll be having something like this as well. So you can select as 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So let's go over to the next type of input. Now another type of input we'll be discussing is the radio, which is very important. So let's have a paragraph tag as well. And we have a label. So let's call it gender. And over here we have gender. So have a BR over here to line break. Then the first input, remember I was talking about radio. So let's give it male. Then on our ID is going to be gender. Like I said, the 4 on your label and the ID on your input must be the same. So gender, gender. Okay, we have this. And I think you can still make this the same. I'm going to show you the reason why we'll be making our radio the same thing as gender. We're making our, instead of making our 4 and ID gender, we'll be making our name and label gender, our 4 and name gender. So let's call this, let's give it an ID of male. So let's go like that. Then we have male, male. So I'll just do this. So I have female over here. And I want to make something clear over here. Okay, I'm going to change this to capital later. So there's a difference on the name. Now let me show you what's going to happen. Now if you look over this part, we have male and female. So when I click on male and I click on female, it means I haven't created a good radio button. I haven't validated it yet. So a radio button must be able to select one option at a time, not unlike the checkbox that you can select multiple options. We want to make our radio button so that it's going to check in just one option at a time. So either we're selecting male or we're selecting female. To do that, we have to make sure we have to make sure we have to make sure that our name our name attribute is having the same value. So since this one is capitalized and the other one is lowercase, it's not going to work. So I'll have to change it to lowercase, then reload our page. So when I click on male and I want to click on female, it simply shifts to female. You can see I can only select one at a time. So this is a good example on how to validate our radio button for option selection. So let's go over to the next one, which is selecting multiple options. So to do that, we're going to use a tag called the select tag. So the select tag, I'm going to say, let's say places, give it places. I'll call these places as well. So the select tag enables us to be able to select different options. And inside the select tag, we have a tag that is nested inside it that enables us to select other options and is known as the option tag. So we have this option. So I'm going to give it the first value, which says Canada, Canada. So repeat the same thing as well here, Canada. So I'm going to have this same option. So have Indian, India. So I have another option, Ghana. Then I have another option, Germany. Okay, now you can decide to put your name attribute or your ID, but I like using the ID. So just say places. So I can tag all my options to have an ID for places. Okay. So once I'm done with this, we can preview our website and see how it looks like. Now over to this part, we have an option selected already, but let's move over to this place and do something else. So let's create an option, a new option, and let's call it none. So I'll regard this as country. And I'm going to have our label, and I'll call it country. Country. So let's go back to our browser. So we have the country over here. So we can select different countries which the user is. So I can click on this. Now this part I wrote country, I can, okay, let me say, let's make it more validated. So instead of writing country over here as an option, I'll just write others. And it doesn't mean where I place this my orders. So let me show you something. So it doesn't really mean where I positioned it, like where I position it. I can decide to move its position and give it an attribute which I'm going to show you how to use. So let's say my orders is at the bottom and I want it to be the first, because when I remove it, Canada becomes the first. So what I'm going to do, I'll move over to my code, and on the option attribute that has orders, I'm going to click selected. So selected is an attribute that no matter the kind of options, no matter the amount of options you have, the one tag selected is going to be the first one to display. So if I reload, I'm going to have orders. So I'll be having this. So I can click on any one of them, and that's it. And another types of inputs I'll be showing you today is going to be the one for dates and time. So I'll label, so I'll say date of birth. So I have an input called date. So I write date in, okay, I write DOB, that's date of birth. And the ID, I'm gonna write date. Okay. Now if you move over, you're going to see date of birth, and I have this with a calendar icon which said show date picker, and I can be able to select the dates I want, also the year. You can see they have different year over here, so I can be able to select, so 1995 July 19, and you can see over here 1995 July 19. So with this date input, you'll be able to select dates and you're able to create a date. So let's move over to the next one. Let's say we have the one for time. So I will label time, time. Let's say we want to use one for time. So these are to use time, input, time. Price time and ID of time. Over here, you can see the clock, then able to select the time, either AM or PM, likewise, and we are done. Automatically, it previews it on our browser. And there's a dates and time feature as well. I don't want to make the video a little bit lengthy, so I will be stopping here. We'll be learning advanced form of creating all these. So this one is called the date time features, and this enables you to select both date and time at the same time. So let's call it date time. I'll give it an ID of date time. Okay, so I have this. Let's reload. Let's see. I think date time. So when I click on this part, I'll be able to select the, the date at this part and also the time at this session. Okay, you can click on today and it sets everything for you, and that's it. So you can see the date over here and the time over here. So this is the date time features, while this is our time and this is for date. So these will be stopping on today's lesson on HTML form. I believe with these few basics of HTML structures, you'll be able to design scalable and simple types of um, HTML website structures. So we'll be moving on to the next session, which is designing or starting our component using the CSS. So stay tuned for the next tutorial. Thanks for watching. You can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.